New digital technologies are driving a step change in enterprise business transformation. At the Digital Twin Podcast, we explore the intersection of technology and business. What should your digital twin look like?
Welcome to the Digital Twin Podcast here with Hari and Omar. Backed by popular demand, today's episode will be focused on some of the terminologies out there in the digital world within the arena of digital transformation. You'll probably hear different things out there from basic digital transformation to digitization, from edge devices, IoT, Industry 4.0. I mean, the name goes on, digital twins, everything like in these realms. And what we've been hearing feedback is people want some clear guidelines, or what does it all really mean and how does it come together? Hari, I mean, we see this in two different sectors of the world. You can probably talk to 3 or 4 different people about one word, and they might have 3 different definitions of what that means.
Yeah. In fact,
right?
I mean, the fundamental word that we have been using on our podcast, which is the digital transformation, itself has a lot of different connotations. And depending on the article that you look at, it's used in all kinds of different ways, right? Depending on the context, I've seen it being used in all kinds of different ways. So, we decided, maybe it's a good time to just, look at some of the terminology. And in fact, I mean, during the research, we'd come across some terminology that we were like, my goodness, maybe we should do this, as an industry, keep this simple and have a definition somewhere stored,
I agree with that. I mean, everywhere you look, I mean, there's 2, 3 different definitions of what it means. So, yeah. So
I mean, even the terminology we're complicating and overcomplicating. How are we going to solve the real business problems?
I agree. I mean, you just told me the definition of what the word means. It's like, we haven't even got to the business problem. What are you trying to solve with that grand scheme there?
How about cyber physical systems?
Oh, that's a big one there.
It's a big one. It's a big problem to solve.
It's like, where do I start on that one, right? Yeah.
Well, maybe we should start something simple, right?
Yeah.
Digital or digitization, right? All right. So that one, I'll take a shot at that one. Fundamentally, we talk about converting analog to digital. That's what digitization is, just as simple as that. And it's nothing more complicated, right? You take a paper-based process, make it into a digital, Word format, an app, or anything that's digital, that's not paper, pen and paper, that's digitization.
So you're telling me paper
To
digital
file. There it is.
Ah.
Pretty simple.
I mean, that's a very simple way of looking at it, right?
That is it.
Paper to mobile to digital, right?
Right. Now, the next one is not that easy, though.
Okay. What do we got?
What is digitalization?
Ooh. What does definition say on that one?
Well,
does that one say?
It's more to do with the business process.
So it's how do we change what we do today and digitally enhance the way we do business?
Yeah, so there are analysts that are defining that as, that as many different steps. It's a step above digitization that we just talked about. But it's means to somewhat go after a use case where you would programmatically or systematically go to a much larger business transformation. But it's more of a use case. It could be a business process oriented change. Okay.
Yeah, they give you, that's a very interesting one there, because I was, a couple of weeks back, one of my good buddies, an attorney, he's a big investor in technology, and there's a lot of technology out there that are doing case reviews and trolling different case files and court hearings and settlements in different ways in legal terms.
Yep.
And defining how they can structure a contract or a document by pulling in all the different variations of things that have been already developed out there.
Yeah.
That process was a very manually intensive, a lot of people researching, doing a lot of different hands. That seems very much in a process that's being a digitalization process. So you're really looking at that whole ecosystem of the way we used to do things.
Yep.
and how we can be a little bit more agile
You're
and
right on.
much more effective.
I also have a good example that a lot of consumers can relate to. So think
Oh,
of Square Payment,
oh yeah.
right? A payment processing mechanism that is new and different using technology as a backbone, but we can use all kinds of different ways to pay for something now, right? If somebody wants money, we have a lot of different ways to pay that money. Merchants are pretty creative when it comes to that. So that is more along the lines of a business process and a use case,
Yeah.
right?
So very specifically across that maybe value chain or the way companies or people used
Yeah,
to do things to kind of look at technology to enhance that efficiency and maybe accuracy. I don't, take a little bit of the
yeah,
human element maybe outside.
could be, yeah, could be.
It could be, right?
Then comes the biggest and the broadest term of all. It's the master of all terminologies, digital transformation.
Oh, let me tell you, man. That's
It's a big one.
it's all encompassing, right?
It's all
It,
encompassing.
that
Yeah,
might be the one term that is really encompassing of all these little individual subterms or categories, right?
yeah.
And I think we hit it throughout multiple aspects through our episodes in the past. If you guys haven't seen them, you guys can go back and take a look at them. But really, it's figuring out a way to use digital technologies to enhance your current status of how you do business, right?
Yeah.
Is there ways to get much more efficient, effective, and in a very simple way in different value chains or processes that you do in your business? Can you identify those things and marry that with technology, expertise, and say, hey, I think we have some great value capture here if we do X, Y, and Z,
Yeah. And
right?
it's also an extension of the two terms that we talked about, right? Digitization is kind of the fundamental step that has to happen if you want to be in any shape of digital or any state of digital. Um, but then a series of digitization efforts would allow you to be, digitally transformed because it's going to take many different digitalization work streams to help you transform your business. And it could be a brand new business model. It could be an accessory to an existing model. It could be improvising your existing businesses, business processes. It could be a lot of different things, but you're fundamentally changing the business, transforming the business, right? And that's really what that is.
So would you say a C-level, somebody running an organization, when they want to see what is available to them, digital transformation is probably a keyword they might key in some of these search engines, or how would they even start to think about, is it possible for me to do something in my industry? It could be, right?
Yeah,
Digital transformation industry. Boom. They might have some ideas
they
just
would.
on that one search, right?
They would. They would. And
So
hey, in meetings, as long as you don't confuse all these three different terms, you're in good shape, right?
yeah.
uh,
That could be,
but
like you say, it's a challenging, way of understanding where all these definitions and what people really think
yeah,
about when they hear these words.
there's the other industry specific terminology that you hear about, the industry 4.0, in all kinds of different spellings as well. INDUSTRIE 4.0.
Mm. Do they all mean the same thing?
Apparently so. It all
So
depends.
they'll,
It all depends on you ask. If you ask a German, it's TRIE 4.0
ah,
because that's where it originated. Right? The terminology
mm,
was coined by the Germans. Of course, all it really means is the fourth industrial revolution. This change in the technology transition is so big enough that it could be considered one of the
mm.
biggest changes that humans have ever experienced. That's a pretty big one.
So do you think we're in the beginning stages of this, or where are we at? Where do you think we are in this transformation or this 4.0, as they say in this industrial, revolution?
It's a good
What do you think?
question. I don't think there was a timer that was set by anyone.
Oh,
But it
so
appears, though, with the virtualization, the cloud, and all of these augmented virtual reality. At some point, we kickstarted that process. Don't really know when, but we're in it now.
So it's coming
It's all
faster
we're
than we
already in
think.
it.
We're already in it.
We're,
So we're in the wave.
we're in the wave, and it's going to be probably a multi-decade long road. So the last one, probably lasted what 3-4 decades.
Yeah.
So we're probably in for another 3-4 decades,
Yeah.
right?
Well, this is going to be an exciting time as people start to get educated on these terminologies and the different types of digital transformation use cases that could be available for them in their industries. I mean, this is the time for them not to miss out, right? So we might be getting to a point where they feel like they got to get on this train or else
Well, I
they'll be
mean,
left behind.
we are at the beginning stages of a revolution, if this is really true, right? And who doesn't want to get on this train?
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Like,
I'm in. Are you?
I'm 100% in. I'll tell you that much. And back to our one of our previous sessions, another terminology that gets thrown out there is edge computing. People get, this
Yep.
edge computing. Is it a new thing, or is it something that's been there but
Is it a
we just
server?
coined it?
Is it a switch? Is it a device? Is it a software? What is it?
Ah, that's a very good question. It could be all of the above.
So, what would be a
You
good
know.
example?
Well, I mean, obviously, a simple one would be your cell phone could be a good edge computing device, can do a lot of computing at your fingertips versus taking things up into an environment to do it for you. In the industrial 4.0 areas, you have a lot of different servers and edge devices that may be monitoring conditions of different um, machinery aspects that might be somewhat autonomous in a way that they kind of keep them in line within certain tolerances. So that, in a sense, is doing analytics at the edge, keeping the machine, or
Is this
yeah,
phone an edge device?
oh, big time, yeah, absolutely. You know, People have actually used this as an edge device to test out different software and technologies in the field. They've used a lot of the functionality here to actually bring in some of the data from here into a different
I think
environment.
it's one of the most powerful edge devices we got, right?
It's at your fingertips, it's readily available, and it's getting better every day, right? So, yeah, so that's one.
So
And then
since we
it kind
talked
of,
about edge, I want to throw a couple of things out there. So we all know what's cloud. I think it's probably the most overused terminology out there. I think just about everybody knows what that is. But what's between the cloud and the edge?
that's that, it's that buffer unknown that people don't talk about, but it's there. What do they call it? The fog? It's in that little arena.
It's the
Um,
fog.
it's the fog, right?
Do we have a
You're
mist as well?
if we do you're right. Yeah. The mist doesn't come down, the data comes up, right? So yes, you're right. It could be a variety of these things, but I think about it from a cloud perspective, right? As the fog comes down, it's the intersection of the sensor
Yeah.
and the actual cloud.
So really, there the goal is so that you don't really send all this data up to the cloud. There is some sort of an intermediate processing
Checkpoint. There's a checkpoint
point.
there
Yeah.
for it. Absolutely. You
Awesome.
know?
Keep it simple. Keep it at that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Another terminology that we hear quite a bit is open loop and closed loop.
That's right. And a lot of that has to do with, you know, who makes decisions, right?
Right.
When we look at an open loop technology, we have a lot of data that's coming at us to help the individual make a decision, drive the action, tell somebody to do X or Y or whatever. When we start looking at closed loop, this is where we get into that autonomy, where we start to kind of look at how can, you know, software and technology, AI and ML start to actually learn and do things on their own without human intervention, which is, part of that industrial 4.0, 4.5, 5.0. That's the goal, that's the vision.
Yeah.
It is not that easy to have that um, closed loop technology executed and adopted because there's a lot of, one is the psychological aspect of letting a machine take over a normal human activity, right?
But let's
Not
be
having
clear,
to.
though, there are closed loop technologies that are being used today.
Yeah,
You're
they
referring
are.
to potentially an entire, let's bring the terminology, cyber physical system, right? An
Oh,
entire
yeah.
system, an entire plant running autonomously, an entire, uh, ecosystem that can own its own destiny, right?
And the closed loop technology adoption comes with the comfortableness, how we are comfortable as humans to let go of some of that control. That's
That's
really where
tough.
the barrier it is, and we're testing that even today in our vehicles, as we have lane assists, as we have, you know, cars that are in proximity. There's programs today that I use or we have turned on or turned off. The ability to turn on and turn off the closed loop if you're drifting from lane or outside the lane, it'll bring you back in. The vehicle will do it for you. You know, when you start looking at the progression of that, what does that look like? Self-driving
Yep.
vehicles, adapting, visuals, taking sensors, taking that in, making adjustments and decisions for you. Now that's a very intimate case where we like to have a lot of control, but that's kind of where you can get a really good example how we the closed loop technology and the human control factor really starts to get into a push and pull environment until we get
Because
into a
until we cross
comfortable
over to
situation.
that stage or state where they can take better, more complete decisions with much better data and much faster decisions than humans can, right?
Mhm.
At that point, you're going to have to let go. Cars are going to drive us around, right?
I don't need the keys anymore. I
Exactly.
don't need- hands? What hands? I don't need hands. Right?
Just show up.
Just show up, right? And just have the faith and just go.
That's
You
it.
know.
That's it. So yeah, that's all I had on my list of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'd like to thank the audience for giving us a few minutes of their time to get educated on some of these terminologies. And feel free to give us any messages. Hari, they can find us on Facebook and Twitter,
Yep.
the Digital Twin Podcast. And we'd look for more directions. Stay tuned next week for our next episode. I think we'll be focused a little bit more on what was that topic that we were thinking about? That really a lot of people were really keen on. I think it was around maybe more on the IoT sensors
Yeah.
level, the kind of what that looks like. We had a lot of people talking about how that really plays a piece, right?
Right.
In the old edge computing, but also into the environment, into what we call the fog now. We just learned a little bit into the fog and it may be into the cloud, right?
Yeah.
So,
Go
so
slow.
go
It's
slow,
it's a long
right?
path.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much. DigitalTwinPodcast.com. See you guys soon.